What am I doing out here in the dark? Oh, that's right. I need to tell you guys something. The first 6 minutes and 50 seconds of today's video are a recap of basically the previous episodes that have gotten us to where we are today. So if you've seen those episodes, you don't want the recap, then just go ahead and skip to the 6 minute and 50 second mark for the new content about why I believe God is the most plausible definition or explanation for objective morality. So thank you for watching and enjoy the video. Welcome back to Main Believers. My name is William, and this is part 5 of our series on morality and why it proves the existence of God. Bittersweet moment, guys. Our last part in the series, but it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. Today, we are discussing why morality proves God's existence. Now, I know I've been saying that for 4 parts, but today we're really discussing it. We really are. We've also covered a lot, though, in the last few weeks, so I thought it would be great to start off with a quick recap of what morality is and why science and the natural world alone can't explain its existence. And then we'll wrap up the video, the final 3 minutes, by discussing why I believe God is the solution to answering the question of why morality exists and what defines what is good. So let's get into it. So what is morality? Well, probably in the simplest terms, morality is the idea that seems to be rather unique to humans that we shouldn't just do what we feel like doing. That there are certain actions that are good and certain actions that are bad, that some things are better than others. But how we discovered this idea of morality or virtue is actually quite peculiar. You see, unlike other laws of the universe, such as the laws of gravitation or the law of mathematics, we didn't discover it through the observation of reoccurring consistent patterns in the natural world. In fact, it seems as though morality was an innate part of every human being. It would also seem as though the idea of right and wrong is objective and not defined by opinion or feeling. Now, there's 2 reasons why I say morality is objective. The first is that nobody lives as though it was subjective or determined by opinion. Nobody says, I feel like murder's wrong, or it's my opinion that murder's wrong. We say murder is wrong. Now, you guys will probably remember I gave a kind of corny illustration to solidify this point in a previous video, but I'm going to repeat it. So let's just picture or imagine that you take a test at school. You study really hard for the test, and you get a B. But then your classmate, who didn't do any work but instead purchased the answers to the test, gets an A+. You're going to be upset, and you're probably going to go tell the principal and demand justice. But you're not going to say, oh, I feel like it's wrong, but that's my opinion. He's got his opinion, and we're good. You're going to say, no, cheating's wrong, and I want justice. He should get a punishment. This is kind of a corny illustration, but it shows the point that when wrongs are done towards us, we realize that certain things are always wrong and certain things are better than others. There's a second reason, though, why I believe it's more plausible or more likely that right and wrong is objective or unchanging in nature, that there are certain things that are always wrong. And that is the way in which societies and cultures in the past have addressed the question of morality. If we look at other cultures, we can see that they all acknowledge that some things are better than others. And I'll fully agree that how they implement this idea of morality differs, but at least they all acknowledge it exists. Now, what's even more interesting is that there is a good amount of congruency, or actually a great amount of congruency, between different cultures on issues such as murder as being wrong, or issues such as showing compassion or grace towards the elderly as being virtuous or good. And if we could just find one thing, such as murder, and show that 95% of nations or cultures in the past view it as wrong, then that would be an indicator that morality is probably not subjective, but rather objective, or at least innate in nature. All right, so we can see that there's this thing called morality, and we can see that it tells us what we should or we shouldn't do. We can also plausibly conclude that morality is not based upon feelings, emotions, or opinions, but rather is an unchanging constant or objective standard. But Can nature or science explain its existence? Well, not really. I will fully grant that science is an incredible tool, but it has its limits. Science tells us what is and how things work, but it can't tell us why things exist or how they should or should not be used. And this is C.S. Lewis's point, and as we talked about with the other laws of nature, we can use science to observe that there are certain constants in the universe, but we can't do the same for morality. And so it would follow that we probably can't explain its existence or ground morality in the natural world or by scientific methods either. We can't even really say that morality is the result of evolution or a byproduct of evolution. Because evolution, if it's driven by anything, is driven by individual survival. And morality often contradicts, or what's virtuous often contradicts survival. So, how do we have something coming out of the process of evolution that contradicts the whole point of evolution, the preservation of individual genes or traits that are beneficial to the species? This is a really hard question to answer. But I would also posit that while we can see things we would call virtuous in other animal species, we can't get the idea that they're virtuous just by observing other animals looking after their young or the elderly. We can see the action, that's an observation of what is, but we can't conclude that it's either good or bad without some standard that's outside of the natural world. Now we've kind of got a bit of a quandary here. We can see that there's this idea. Certain things should be done, certain things shouldn't be done. We can see that that idea is based off some objective standard. But we can also see that it's highly unlikely, if not impossible, for that standard to be found within the natural world or explained by scientific methods. So then what is the most plausible explanation for the existence of morality, and off what is it based? Well, this is where we get into the question of God and why I believe morality proves his existence. Oh, there's a bunch of Canadian geese like right over my head. Whoa. All right, so this gets us to the question of, does God really explain the existence of morality? Can he be the standard for morality? And is he the more plausible solution for its existence and foundation? This is really the question. When we're working with these abstract concepts such as morality, we can't look at the physical world and say, this thing is this way or this thing is that way. We have to look at explanations for the existence of morality, and we have to say which one is more plausible. So here is my defense of the theistic definition or defense of morality. Let's grant, or let's pre-assume, that there is a God behind the universe. Let's also grant, like the Bible says, that we as humans are made in his image, and that God is unchanging in nature and is the essence or the fulfillment of virtue and goodness. Now, if God made us in his image and he is all good and all-knowing and all-powerful, then we would expect to have some reflection or some exemplification of virtue on the human nature. Now, let's also grant that, as the Bible says, humans have rebelled against God, that we have our nature and that reflection of virtue has been corrupted by sin and rebellion. If that is true, we would expect to find a conflicting battle between what is good and what is bad taking place within the human nature. We would expect to find corrupted versions of morality, but we would also expect to find certain things, certain key pillars of morality clearly reflected through the majority of cultures. And that's what we see. We see that the vast majority of cultures say that murder is always wrong. We see that within all of us, there's this, something's broken when we see horrible things happen, and something is uplifted or something is fulfilled when we see good or virtuous things happen. Now, you might be wondering, is God defined by morality, or does God just subjectively define what is good or evil? Now, these are two important questions. If God is defined by morality, then morality is outside of God. And if God just subjectively defines what is good, then there really is no pattern, and God's not that great after all. All right, so this is often called the Euphronian dilemma. I don't know if I said that right, but it can really be answered with a simple statement. God is not defined by morality, and neither does he just subjectively define what is good. Rather, God in his essence is all good. God by his nature is the fulfillment of goodness. And so when he decrees something, it is only good. It is only virtuous. And also, God is not defined by morality because there is no morality without God. We can't have the idea of goodness from the Christian worldview without the existence of God. So that's the most simple answer you're going to get to the Euphronian dilemma in 30 seconds. But if we just zoom back and we look at everything we've discussed over the last few weeks and everything we discussed in the last 10 minutes, we have this idea that we can all relate to, that something within us is broken when certain things happen. Something within us yearns for goodness, for mercy, for wholeness to the world, for peace. And yet we don't see that in the world around us. And that clearly makes sense, or the most sense, from a Christian worldview that teaches that there is a God who is nothing but goodness, and that he has made us in his image, and that we have rebelled against him and corrupted the world around us. You can't really use nature and science to explain the existence of objective morality, and you can't say that it's just subjective. So I would ask you to look at the last few videos, to look at this video, to look at your own experience and your life and the world around you, and to ask, is it more likely that there is a God who is all good, or that what we call morality is just the result of random, coincidental, naturalistic circumstances? Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all your attention over the last few videos, and I will fully admit that I was not able to cover everything in this video. So if you have a question or a counter argument to some of the stuff I've said, please put it in the comment section. The deadline for submitting your questions is this Friday, and then on Monday I will be dropping my Q&A video where I will tackle probably the top 6 or 7 comments from the last few videos. So thank you for watching again, and I'll see you guys Monday.